MLS Week 5 is here, so let's break down our top soccer picks and MLS predictions for the weekend now. Last week, it was 2-0 for these parlay picks, bringing us to an even 4-4 on the season. Last week, we saw 47 goals in the 14 games. That was good for 3.36 goals per match. That's the MLS that I like to bet on. But this might not be the week to get too crazy with tons of bets, as there's going to be all kinds of different lineups out there with lots of players away on international duty. You can find the full list of all of those. There is a post up on the MLS website. For instance, a team like Minnesota is missing a ton of players, but luckily for them, they are off this week. One of 3 teams off, as well as Dallas and Montreal, who are sitting off. So let's get into our top MLS picks and parlays. And if you find this helpful, give the video a like and subscribe to the channel to get more soccer picks and MLS picks all year round. Parlay number 1 for me starts with St. Louis and DC. This will be the first ever meeting between these cross-conference teams. St. Louis sit 5th in the West, 1-3-0, undefeated, but 3 draws in 4 games. They've scored 8, they've allowed 6. They've scored multiple goals in all 3 games. 3-3 draw to the Galaxy last week, 2-2 draw in Austin before that, and a 2-0 win at home to New York City FC in their first game. If you count the Champions Cup, they've scored in 5 of 6, but they've also conceded a goal in 5 of 6, making both teams to score 4 and 2 in St. Louis games. That New York City FC home win this year was their first home MLS win after 3 games without a win, but they were dominant at City Park last year, and in their history, they're 12-3-5 at home when playing in MLS. DC come in 9th in the East. They're 1-2-1. They've scored and allowed 6 goals so far. They lost 3-1 at home to a messyless Miami last week and are winless in 3. They have just 1 win in 8 if you count preseason. They drew 0-0 in Cincinnati and drew 2-2 in Portland. And they aren't usually a strong road team with 0 wins in 7 and 2 wins in 14 across their most recent road MLS games. As of now, international absentees were not listed for St. Louis. DC will have 4. At 3.5 goals per match, St. Louis games average the second most in the West behind the Galaxy and the 5th most in all of MLS. DC's games are averaging 3 goals per match themselves, so we're seeing a fair amount of goals from both of these teams. Only Miami and the Galaxy have created a higher XG than DC. DC is 3rd behind those teams as well in shots on target. DC has also given up the 6th most shots on target against them. I want to say both teams to score in this game. That's probably where the best value would be. Both teams are top 6. Atlanta 5th and DC 6th in penalty area touches. Probably going to get chances from both teams here. Though DC does have 0 wins in their last 7 competitive road games. If you go back to last season, 0-10 if you count the preseason earlier this year as well. They've also been shut out on the road in 6 of 10. So while I do think both teams to score is very possible, we could just go St. Louis to score or over 1.5 goals in the game to be safer to kick off this parlay. Let's go over 1.5 between St. Louis and DC. And we'll pair it up with Sporting Kansas City and the Galaxy. These teams both have 6 points. They'll meet here. The Galaxy are 4th, 1-3-0. They're undefeated. SKC 6th, also at 1-3-0 as well. Only Chicago Fire are seeing more goals in their games than the Galaxy, who are averaging 4 goals per match in their games. Chicago's games are averaging 4.3. Galaxy's games have been 3-3, 2-2, 3-1, and 1-1 so far. SKC2 have seen both teams to score. Bets go 3-1 and 2-1 with a 2-1 win last week. Before that, it was a 0-0, and then they had 2 1-1 draws. So the games haven't been super high scoring. They've been in good form, though, going back to last season at 10-3-4 in MLS, and they have scored a goal in 14 of 17 recent games in MLS when playing at home at Children's Mercy Park. Last year it was 2-2 in LA and 0-0 in KC. 2022 it was 2-2 in LA and 4-2 in Kansas City. In fact, SKC has now scored 2 goals versus LA in 5 of their last 6 meetings. So certainly the case can be made for some goals in this game. As of now, international absentees were not listed for the Galaxy, but all of their key attackers should be here as they were not called up. They are down defender Caceres, who took a red card last week, which should further hamper their already questionable defense, while SKC has just 1 missing player, and it's not a key player. Now, look, Galaxy games just look like clear overs. To me, anybody who's watching MLS so far can see that until we see otherwise. This trend was evident for most of last season with the Galaxy games, and it's looking like it's going to continue this season as well. Galaxy MLS games, both teams to score has now gone 13-0. Both teams to score over 2.5 has gone 12-1 as well. If you go back further, both teams to score is 18-2 in their last 20 games, and both teams to score over 2.5 is 17-3. That's a pretty long track record here of goals coming at both ends in Galaxy games. Galaxy have the most shots on target, the second highest XG so far they should be able to score. They always look like they're going to score. But their defense, again, looks questionable, and they'll be traveling to a tough place to play in KC, who has plenty of players capable of scoring, such as Alan Polito. We could go both teams to score in over 2.5 if you wanted to bet this by itself. For this parlay, I'm just going both teams to score in case we see another 1-1. We've seen that score happen with SKC games a couple times already. So this parlay will be Kansas City and the Galaxy, both teams to score, and over 1.5 with St. Louis and DC coming in at minus 116 odds. One more parlay here. 3 games in this one. Charlotte and Columbus. Both teams are probably where they should be right now. The champs, Columbus. They're second in the East, 3-1-0. They're undefeated. They've scored 7 goals. And in those 4 games, they've only conceded 2 goals. Charlotte would have wanted more so far, but they are still a third-year team who lost some players in the offseason. They come into this 1-1-2. Their new DP, Liel Abada, won't be debuting. Very unlikely. He was called up by Israel for the internationals. They're also out defender Jari Arunen from Finland. The Crew have a few more missing pieces, including midfielders Taha Brune and Aiden Morris, forward Jacine Russell-Rowe, and 2 keepers in Patrick Schulte and Nicholas Hagen. Columbus won at home 4-2 versus Charlotte in the last meeting between these teams last season, but it was 1-0 when they played in Charlotte. Otherwise, there have been score lines of 2-2, 1-1, and 0-0 going back further in their history. Now, that 1-0 loss that Columbus had in Charlotte last year was just 1 of 4 games where the Crew didn't score last season in over 46 games in all of their competitions. Last year, they also allowed a goal in 35 of 46. That defense has improved, as they've only allowed 2 goals in 4 MLS games, and if you include the Champions Cup, they have 3 clean sheets in 6 games as well. They've only allowed 3 goals combined in all of their games. The scoring, though, is still there. They've scored in all 6 games this season in all competitions, and now if you look back to last season, they scored a goal in 48 of 52. Now, Russell-Rowe has 2 goals, Morris has 1, so they'll certainly be missed. Pacucho Hernandez is still there, so too is Diego Rossi, Christian Ramirez. And Charlotte has conceded in each of their past 3 games. It's important to note that those games were on the road, and their one home game this season was a 1-0 clean sheet win over New York City FC. And the Columbus attack, definitely a better unit than New York's. At home, Charlotte has been lights out, though. In MLS, they have gone undefeated in 10, and they have just 1 loss in 16. They scored a goal in 14 of 16, and they've kept 6 clean sheets and 3 straight clean sheets when playing at home. I think Columbus, though, is just always a good bet. They are, though, on the road. They are missing some players that could be tired from Champions Cup, so I don't want to pick the win here. This could be a tighter game than you might think at first. Let's just ask Columbus to score to kick off this 3-team parlay, where all we're going to ask for is 3 teams to score in our MLS picks. Next up, Vancouver RSL. It's been a good start for Vancouver. They're still undefeated at 2-1-0. They're second in the West. They've scored 6. They've allowed just 2. RSL are 8th in the West, 1-1-2. They've scored 5. They've conceded 5. They were off last week with the bye. Last year, RSL won both games 2-1, home and away. Both teams' scores now hit in each of the last 5 meetings. The score lines have read 2-1, 2-1, 1-1, 2-1, and 4-1. In the last 9 meetings, there's been 2 or more goals in all 9. There's been 3 or more goals in 8. So tons of goals between these 2 teams usually. Vancouver has scored in all 3 of their games this season. They just came off 2 road wins. They're at home in MLS. At home, when they're playing, they've scored in 19 of 22, while on the road in MLS, RSL has just 2 wins in 10, and they have conceded a goal in 8 of 10 road games. Vancouver will now come home after being on the road. They have 4 home games. They're in a good spot to stay near that top of the conference, and will look to kick off that stretch with a win here. They're out Fafa Pico and Andreas Kubas to international duty, but their top scorers will still be there. RSL will be out Diego Luna, which is also a big loss. I'd certainly lean towards a home Vancouver win. Certainly Vancouver to score in this parlay looks good. And finally, it's a late game. Portland and Philadelphia. Cross-conference teams here. Completely different spots in their respective tables. Portland off to a strong start. They're 2-1-1. Scored 8, allowed 5. It's a better start than probably most would have expected for them. They will add new DP forward Jonathan Rodriguez Cabecita from Club America to bolster their attack. He will join, though, pending a visa, so not sure if he will be in the lineup this week, but he will bring some offense. He had 108 goals, 27 assists in 277 appearances in all competitions in Mexico with Club America. It's still possible. Maybe he comes off the bench, though. Not known at this time. Portland missing keeper Maxime Crepeau, plus defenders Miguel Araujo and Kamal Miller. Philadelphia missing a ton of players. 8 of them: Ty Baribo, Andre Blake, Jesus Bueno, Daniel Gazdag, Nathan Ariel, Damian Lowe, Jose Martinez, and Jack McGlynn. That's one keeper, 2 defenders, 4 midfielders, and 1 forward. So if we look at all that, there is a lot of defenders and a keeper from both teams that are missing. So we certainly could make the case for goals coming from both sides here with some backups playing in those key spots. Philadelphia are one of 6 teams still yet to win. They're 0-3-0. They've scored 5, and they've also allowed 5. Portland was shut out 1-0 in Houston last week, but previous games, they saw tons of goals in their games. It was 2-1 win, a 2-2 draw, and a 4-1 win. Last game was the first time they failed to score in 13 games, having been shut out by Houston again in that next previous time where they failed to score. That was back in last August in MLS, also on the road. When they're playing at home, Portland's not been shut out in 12 games. Philly's struggles haven't just been in MLS. If you add in the Champions Cup, they're 1-5-1 and also winless in 6. They've conceded a goal in 5 of 6. They've allowed multiple goals in 4 of 6. They've scored in 4 of 6. That makes both teams score 4 and 2 in their games. That's certainly an option here. There were no games between them in 2023, but the last game was a 2-0 Philly road win in 2022. There's also been 2 or more goals in 9 straight meetings between these teams, and even 3 or more goals in 7 of the last 8. Portland, they're severely overperforming their XG this season. They have 8 goals on an XG of just 3.7, but let's hope that continues here, where they can at least get on the score sheet against a Philly team on the road who's not been living up to expectations and are missing a ton of players. I think we could go both teams to score. Let's just go for this parlay, Portland to score, making the parlay Portland, Vancouver, and Columbus just to get on the score sheet at -118 odds. That's it for my week 5 MLS picks. What do you like? Leave your best bets down there in the comments, be it straight picks, upsets, parlays. Good luck this weekend. You can find the write-up of these games as well over at shredthespread.com, and the final picks listed at the end of this video. Thanks and good luck.